Welcome back to the Nice's Fantasy Podcast. With you as always, I am your host, Marcus Vasil Vikander, and with me today is Emanuel Turesson.
Yes, and today we're going to go deep into pulp fiction but not the movie.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about the Sword and Sorcery, a bit about fantasy before Tolkien.
Yeah, okay. Because I believe you asked me to see the movie to have some point of reference. So I have seen Conan the Barbarian with
Yes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I am ready for all your questions about this masterpiece of cinema.
Yeah.
That launched an illustrious movie career for Arnold, which led into an illustrious political career.
Among many things.
Yeah. A man of many talents.
And what I would like to start is, do you know that the movie is actually not based on Conan the Barbarian at all?
Yeah, you mentioned that on bypassing earlier, that they sort of mixed two books together to make the plot of the movie.
Yeah, and I also have to preference here that we talk about the writing of Robert E. Howard here, who created Conan. But we can't actually call them books, because there were never books until compilations later, because he started in an earlier era.
Yeah.
But it's true. The many of the plot points are of course from Conan, but many are also from a previous work of Robert E. Howard that was called Kull the Conqueror.
Okay.
And Kull the Conqueror was a slave that became a king. Conan was never a slave.
He became a king.
That he did.
Yeah. But which kingdom did Cal become king over?
It was, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it was during another era where the city of Atlantis still existed.
Oh, okay.
So the story goes that the Atlanteans were the wise people and everything, and then something catastrophical happened, and the collapse of Atlantis and the fall of Atlantis, and then the whole world went into chaos. And because of many authors use the same preference, Robert E. Howard wanted to create something of his own. So he made a new age between the Atlantean era of the made-up history and our modern time. And he called it the Hyborian Age. Hyborian Age.
A Hyborian Age.
And that's when we follow the different kingdoms in the world of Conan. And he was one of the first fantasy authors that started to build a world. In a sense, because prior to Robert E. Howard, many of the authors were science fiction writers. Many of the early fantasy inspired works, or the works that inspired other fantasy writers, was science fiction based.
Yeah.
They went to March. In March there was a feudal system, and there were kings and queens, but it was on Mars. So you could understand that they went to somewhere, and then it was a fantasy world.
Yeah, also like with the book Dune, which was a big inspiration for George R. R. Martin's Game of Thrones. Because in Dune you also have an aristocratic society, although it's a galactic empire, and they're fighting over this planet called Arrakis.
Yeah.
And the entire story kicks off with House Atreides being granted this planet to steward it for the Emperor.
Yeah. Dune is an interesting novel in the science fiction, but you can see the elements that they borrowed from each other. And
that's my point, that as you say, it's close to fantasy, although that is science fiction. So you can clearly see how many fantasy authors were inspired by great works of science fiction. And if you ask me, Asimov's Foundation and Dune are two of the biggest classical sci-fi books.
Yeah, and if you look at many people, I'm going off on a tirade here because I've gone into the deep end on the pulp universe. When you look at pulp, it was almost like, to explain it to those who don't know anything about it, it was the TikTok of books.
Ah, okay.
So during the 20s and the 30s, there was not many. TV hadn't come yet. Movies wasn't made in the same way. And radio wasn't everywhere. And you wanted to have something, especially during the Depression era, after 29, the big crash and everything, where you wanted something cheap that could make anyone go on a journey to escape from the hardship of the life that was. And the interesting thing is that the genre of fantasy that evolved from that got the nickname Sword and Sorcery. Because it didn't have the plot of the epic fantasy.
Yeah, it's not life-ending stakes in the story.
No, because it was supposed to be about a character's journey and that he is strong enough himself to get out of the trouble. Because that, during that time, was what you wanted to read. You wanted a hero, even if he's almost not always a hero, but sometimes a little bit of an anti-hero.
Yeah.
But he did it for his own reasons. And when he did it, he overcame in the end.
Yeah.
And it was a quick story. So you needed to go on to the next. And many of the authors during that time wrote very fast and very many stories. And they were usually connected through fantasy and science fiction. But there was also many westerns and adventure adventure stories was very popular as well.
Makes me think about the founder of the religion Scientology.
Yes.
Wasn't he a pulp author?
He was a prolific pulp author.
Yeah, and didn't he write science fiction?
He did. He also wrote fantasy.
Okay.
He actually wrote a fantasy novel called Excalibur that was so incredibly good that anybody who read it took their own life. So no one has read it. It has never been published. But he has claimed himself that it was so good. That
he's a freaking legend, that man. That's
Robert E. Howard.
Robert E. Howard.
Or Howard, anyway. Ron Hubbard, I think it's called.
Hubbard. Ron Hubbard.
Hubbard.
Yeah. But on that note, is there any fantasy pulp available from him?
I would think so, but because I think he had over 30 different aliases when he wrote, because he was a prolific writer, and he wrote because they couldn't publish all his work, so he just wrote 10 more stories, and 10 more stories under that name. So he wrote so many different stories and stuff. But I haven't followed it. He was mostly into science fiction already during that time.
If we can find some of his fantasy pulp fiction, I believe one episode we should review some of them.
Sure.
Because that is also my way to get the theme of Scientology into the fantasy podcast. Although I would claim that Scientology is a form of fantasy, but that is a debate for another time.
Yeah, we had the religion episode a couple of episodes ago. Yeah. Maybe we'll come back to it.
Yeah, and you shut down my attempt to bring in Scientology into the conversation.
Yes, and we will do it this time as well. Yeah. But I think the interesting to look at is that there was a pulp fiction magazine that was called Weird tales that focused a little bit more on quality. They wanted to make it a bit more, a bit better than the rest.
Okay,
And they wanted
so not just swords and boobs.
Well, but with a good story.
Literate swords and boobs.
But they had many different good authors. And they had 3 different authors. So they had, that was the prolific 3. That was really important to them.
And they were all 3 L. Ron Hubbard.
No. One of them was Robert E. Howard, that wrote Conan and Kull, and he has another character that's really interesting as well. It's called Solomon Kane, the witch hunter. I think there is a movie with Jackman that's called Solomon Kane that they made from it. But those were the main of his characters. And then you had H.P. Lovecraft as well. So they worked a lot together.
So he started as a pulp author.
Yes, and they were really close friends as well.
And Hubbard.
No. No, he wasn't part of the gang. But Lovecraft and Howard did meet during a big place where loads of writers met and had discussions together. There is proof that they had met. And
so maybe H.P. Lovecraft saw an early draft of his fantasy novel called Scientology.
No, but he said that's an impressive man.
Okay.
He has visions. He told a friend in a letter at a later date. And those 2, I mean, Lovecraft started, he wrote the big difference that most of the genre during that time is that most of these authors that were pulp authors, you never saw them again. They wrote, they didn't get much payment. They were paid by word. It could be so little like a cent or penny for a word, so they had to write a lot. So it was, and you look, the interesting thing, what was the first genre that started to become popular? Well, it was sci-fi, and then came sci-fi romance. So, but there were still loads of different types of all the.
So you could say sci-fi romance came out before romantasy.
Yeah, it did. There was another...
and that brings the question, since you said that fantasy authors took their inspiration from science fiction. Then perhaps has Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros taken inspiration from some great sci-fi romance works?
Now, we shouldn't always mention great here, because not all of this, but many of the different authors that actually was able to go through the process of living through the pulp era where everything became really good writers as well, because they wrote so much and they practiced their craft so much. So it's a really interesting time to go through and learn about. I mean, the guy who wrote Tarzan, he was a pulp author. So he started in the pulp era as well. So many authors during that time actually became good writers, probably because they put in their 10,000 hours. That's the old expression. To be a master of something, you have to put in 10,000 hours. But back to Conan. Conan was, or the Conan stories was really interesting to see, because that was when he started to make something that was different than the previous way. Because many of the heroes during that time was really regular people that was transported to a different universe, and they used their science and their skills. And Howard was more fond of having a man's man. He didn't like this, that it was the every man. He wanted a hero that was manly, he was muscular, he was intelligent. Many don't think Conan is supposed to be intelligent. He's really intelligent in the stories.
Mm-hmm. What you mean that Arnold wasn't a good pick to illustrate an intelligent man?
Not in the story that he received.
Good save, good save.
There is a story where it's almost like a crime story where they have to figure out the murder. And they go together, a group, and Conan is there, and he's like, why am I here? I don't really need to be here. But he figures stuff out, and he's really intelligent. He uses a lot of skills, and he's a traveling thief during a lot of his stories. And then you need to know that he's not a robber. He's a thief. He's a good, skilled thief that climbs in. And the way that the story was written about a character that doesn't have these world problems. It's not the mighty villain that will take over the world. It's maybe this
more down to earth.
Yeah, and the interesting here is the magic system was really expanded upon how magic works. Conan don't trust any magicians. Magicians are evil people. They use mostly the time are evil magic. Magic is evil. It's supposed to be have a bad reputation. It's usually around cults, and you can see it also follow the way of the Lovecraftian. Lot of cults, elder gods, aliens. They're in there in Conan as well. So they have inspired each other. Many of the Lovecraftian gods are mentioned in between, and you can read them.
Maybe you can hear the call of Cthulhu even there.
You probably could. So they're really interesting to see that there was a joint universe and type of writing so early on. So it's really interesting, I think, to see that all these things made something that was new. And even Tolkien said that he really was impressed and interested by the type of world building. It was not a long essay about it, but he respected the world building that was made during the era and that. And there were earlier fantasy pulp writers because they were a part in the early century as well that inspired Tolkien as well. So he was inspired by the works that preceded him.
Yeah,
and that many think of him as the father of the modern fantasy, and he is in a way, but he had his own heroes and his own inspirations as well. So it's good to know that fantasy didn't start in the 30s or 40s. It has been with us a long time.
Yeah.
And if you look at modern day sword and sorcery, you can look at the first books of The Witcher.
Mm-hmm.
Those are very typical sword and sorcery stories.
Yeah, as you follow Geralt of Rivia, The Witcher.
Yeah.
On different adventures.
Because those are not connected. Those he of course, he evolves as a writer.
Yeah.
And new things come to pass, and you get a more connected plot.
Do you know that Andrei Sapkowski first wrote short stories?
Yes.
Yeah, for a magazine, which was then collected into two collection novels, and then a publishing house wanted him to write a full-length novel. So very pulpy in how it started out, and Andrei Sapkowski was a traveling salesman in communist Poland. So he said that a lot of the ideas to the short stories he got during that time traveling around Poland. Don't remember what it was he sold at that time, but he said he met a lot of people and got a lot of the inspiration for these different folk tales and so forth.
Yeah, and you can see the parallels in the way that...
So since you're a pulp fiction expert, I have to ask, one sort of critic that Andrei Sapkowski has gotten is that he has the male gaze when describing female characters. Would you say the author of Conan the Barbarian also have that problem? or
yeah,
perceived problem.
Of course. Now, if you go back to the pulp era, we have to know that those. I don't want to defend them, but I need to explain that they were written in a different time, a different era. And if you look at maybe Weird Tales, they're extremely racist. Many of the tales there. Lovecraft was profound when it came to being a. He had many issues, and one of these issues, he was extremely nervous about what is going to happen to the world when other cultures come together, and he was really afraid of these things in many ways, and he portrayed many of the different races in a not very.
So maybe his books is, a go-to read for the Sweden Democrats here in Sweden, which is the nationalistic party in Sweden for our American listeners.
I don't know. Maybe.
They have a similar opinion.
Might have. I don't think anyone has those opinions anymore. Not into those extremes that was during that time.
So he would have walked into the party congress and say, "Who are these lightweights?"
Probably.
Okay, good to know.
And that's something that's a big discussion when you try to review his work today.
Yeah.
That the eras have changed and the way. But when you come to Robert E. Howard, there's a different way to look at it, because when you had a pulp writer, sometimes they went in to the meeting and they looked at the different covers, and the most sold covers was usually of loosely clad women that was worshipping a big strong man or something, and those sold the most. So sometimes they chose a good cover and they wrote the story
for
after.
The cover. Yeah.
So there was a sales thing about it. And if you look at Howard, he was young, born in Texas, wanted to become a man, but there's many mysteries about him as well, because he was a depressed man.
Okay.
He didn't live very long. He took his own life in his 30s.
He did a Hemingway.
Yeah, when he was 30 years old. And I think Lovecraft died 4 months later.
Okay.
From cancer.
Okay.
And his mother he lived with his mother. And she was diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Oh.
So he went before her. So he had many troubles in his personal life. And those affected him in many ways. But he expressed a lot of... the way he tried to explain it is that these male gaze women, those are the women that are incompetent. Because there are as well women in his stories that are a match or even an equal to Conan. Those are not they are not represented the same way. But some of the women are really badly represented, but those are not the ones that Conan wants in any way.
No.
They're just there for pleasure, as wine or wine and women and song. They're objects to be used in his worldview. But those good women, those that are strong and capable, those are the ones that you admire.
No.
So there's a complication to his stories as well. And you can look at this, I think it's the last book he wrote. There's a big journey together with the women, and the woman there actually thinks she's superior. And she has to accept that maybe she doesn't. During the journey, he finds her strong and capable. But she goes through a journey where she thinks she's stronger, but then just think of him as an equal.
Yeah.
So the strong women don't agree with with men as well. They don't think many men are, but as well, and in different era as well when they wrote them.
But it's like we can learn from a great thinker and philosopher of our time, Andrew Tate. He also says that you should go for the simple women, and that a smart and driven woman, that's nothing for you, man.
No, it probably isn't for him.
Yeah, so maybe he's read a lot of pulp.
I don't think he's read.
But did you know, actually, a bit side step, but Andrew Tate is actually sort of a fantasy author because he has written a fantasy-esque short story collection where the main character is him doing kung fu somewhere in a fictional part in China. I think it's called like Tales from the Mountain of Wuhan, something like that. So you never know. Maybe he was inspired by these pulp legends and wanted to make his own edition.
Yeah, it could be.
Could be. Who knows?
And when it comes to pulp, there's an endless. And you can go to the interwebs today because many of the pulp authors, they didn't own their rights. So when the magazines collapsed, the rights went public.
Yeah.
So there's loads of websites, archives that have these stories, and you can read them. So there's an ocean of interesting works to see, even if many of them are not that good, because they're actually meant to be TikToks. They're meant to be fast, quick, and that's why the good writers stood out, because they did what they should, but they couldn't hold themselves. They did more.
And
you can see that one of Robert E. Howard's biggest compliments is the way he presents a fight. Like it's like a song, like a dance. He describes the movements. It's not the same as the quick, action-packed fights of the ones that was less experienced in everything. And he always thought he was born in the wrong era. He wanted to be a gladiator in somewhere in I think it was from descendants from Ireland. So Conan was an Irish name. That's the reason why Conan. The world building was made that he's a Cimmerian, and those people, of course, ended up in Ireland in the modern day.
But circle back. So H.P. Lovecraft died early.
Yes.
And the author of Conan.
Well, it was 48.
48, okay.
44, 48, somewhere 48. There.
And the author to Conan also, he Hemingwayed himself.
Yes, 30 years old.
He did a Hemingway. And both those authors, had the male gaze, we can say, in their literature.
They had, I think it's hard to say if I'm not that experienced in
H.P. Lovecraft.
In Lovecraft's stories. I know the worlds and the gods, but
so we only had one great pulp author who didn't die early, and who maybe didn't use the male gaze. L. Ron Hubbard.
Well,
perhaps there is a connection here.
Yeah.
Perhaps if H.P. Lovecraft and the author of Conan had, taken to heart the greatest work of fantasy called Scientology, maybe things would have turned out differently.
Maybe he read Excalibur. That was the reason. He found the early copy that was never published, and then no, but it is a tragedy in its own way when it came to that part that it's so much for someone to do that, and it's a tragedy in many ways too. Even if it's so low to say that we would have wanted more of everything. It's an interesting journey to see that so many authors, I mean, Tarzan was something I think most of us grew up on, even if it was the black and white Tarzan that was like a series, or the Disney version. I mean, Tarzan has been a generational thing that all generations get their own. I mean, Skarsgård is a Tarzan now.
Yeah.
So many of the modern history of came from nothing in many ways.
Yeah. So maybe we should be happy that they haven't done a movie adaptation of Excalibur, because
but at least that version. But that was so great. So I don't think.
So if reading the book made you kill yourself, if they make a really good adaptation, heads will roll.
Yeah, maybe it was, if you look at it the other way, maybe it was just Hubbard that never really went for it. That's why he continued. He never went into his craft as well. That's good. Could have been.
After all, we can't forget that he didn't have the time, to keep being a prolific fantasy author. He had to spread this great religion,
Yeah, that came later. He started with the cups and the stuff in the 50s.
Yeah.
That's a part of the religion now, but he started with some things. But those are another discussion.
Yeah, so maybe one day.
So I think if you get the chance in the future, you should absolutely read some Conan.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he's a good writer.
Yeah.
And you can, those are fast stories. You don't need to go in and think, because I think his biggest book about Conan was never published as a book. But they have included it in the collected versions that has been populated. Yeah. But that could be a novella today. So there were never those big epic books. But those are interesting as well, because the only book that was never published, you can follow Conan and he evolves during the story. So you can see that he's becoming a really good writer. So it would have been fun to see what he became of everything. If things were different.
Yeah.
So during the pulp was a thing of its time, and it was understandable that it was so quick, and you can understand why it went away as well, because it started to watch TV and everything. But an interesting era anyway.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're gonna stop here with a minute of respect for the heroes of pulp fiction. We will never forget them, our fallen heroes. So that's our episode for today. Don't forget to read the works of these heroes of pulp fiction.
Yeah, keep reading.
Keep reading, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.